Round of 16, match 5.
In the bottom left, in the blue, our Zerg player from Finland. He is
ENCE Esports, Serral.
Our king, our emperor. In the top right here, the challenger. One of the best Terrans in the entire world. He is
Splice, TY.
All right, so let's talk about some trends that have been happening in this matchup. Lately, we've seen battle cruisers become incredibly popular. I have to imagine we're going to see some battle cruiser usage in this game, and I'm really most interested in seeing how Serral deals with it, because a lot of the Zergs that we've watched have really struggled against it. I mean, one of the big ideas we have with this technique is that the battlecruiser comes out, it can warp wherever it wants, so it can basically choose a good location to attack. It, of course, can fly away when it gets damaged. But as long as you don't lose it, you can send it back home and repair it, and then make another one, and another, and another.
Yeah.
And as they increment out more and more, the Terran really gets such incredible control in the game.
They really do. And you know what, Tasteless? I would have been 100% with you if I didn't get to speak to TY before the series. I actually got to speak to him a little bit. You know, TY's my boy. We had a bit of a chat there in the green room and just talked about how do you feel about Serral coming up. He actually does not believe in his late game against Serral. He thinks the Infestor is a little bit too strong, thinks late game Zerg is a little bit too hard for him to deal with, which is a surprise to me, because to me, TY is a late game god. He's so incredibly good at late game.
Yeah, I'm actually shocked to hear that. I would never have guessed he would have.
I mean, unless he just lied to my face, which is always an option. But with this opening of TY, it does seem to be the case. You know, he's always said that he wants to, well, he said to me this morning that he wants to put on a little bit more pressure and try and go into the mid game with a bit of a lead and hopefully end it before it gets too long. And we can see with this double Reaper opening, he is definitely trying to put on a bit of early game pressure against Serral.
Yeah, an opening like this definitely is saying, I want to get an initiation right away. A lot of this is going to be hinged on control. A little bit of an unconventional approach here, and let's see how much damage these Reapers can really do. One thing you want to watch for when these Reapers come in is that because Reapers can heal up, as long as you're not losing any early on, it is something that will definitely increment and get stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yeah, when you start to get critical mass of Reapers, I mean, there are some madman Terran out there, you know, shout out to, you know, Euthermal, a couple of those guys who like to actually get, you know, attack upgrades with their Reapers and really put on a sauce in the early game. But at the moment, it just looks like a, you know, 2 Reapers, 2x2 here. Nothing's been proxy or anything like that. It's not a 3 racks Reaper build. So it is just pressure with TY still getting, you know, an expansion back at home. So it's definitely not, you know, an early all-in. But he is just trying to slow down the Zerg, force out a few more Zerglings instead of drones, and potentially drone kills if you can.
And again, this forces out quite a bit of Lings. You can see TY using different parts of the map. But this is a great play. And these 4 Lings were sent in right when Ling's speed was finished, so they can be microed really effectively to kill off additional workers. We only have 1 worker killed off so far, as the Reaper's going to come in, and I actually think that's going to be the end of that harass. So very well handled there by TY.
Yeah, pretty decent worker micro. Only losing 1 SCV there. Very nicely handled by the Terran, but just more so the fact that the Zerg got into his face is the annoying part here. And now Serral kind of has the map now that he has Ling speed. These Reapers are just really not that effective anymore. Of course, if they're in a group, if they can launch their KD8 grenades, will be just fine. I'm not sure where that one was going, but
yeah, I don't know what the I don't know what the story with that was.
But the reason you see this sort of build on New Repugnancy is there's that cliff right to the north of the natural that we're looking at right now, the Observer. You have that extra bit of cliff, so where the Reaper has a little bit more power, a little bit more staying power in the game. But that is definitely not the end game plan here for TY. We're seeing a starport factory be made back at home, and probably going to be heading towards a 3rd CC shortly as well, as he's really not a whole lot that Serral can do against TY. He's not really, you know, one to Bane bust or, you know, really put on early game damage. He's very confident, like even in his interview he said his EBT is pretty good, and if Serral says it's pretty good, then that means it's terrifying for his opponent.
Yeah, you know, these Reapers out now, keep in mind the Reapers don't have a lot of equity in a longer game, so he definitely had to halt that. But, you know, to what you were saying earlier, Maynard, I think it's already been very clearly highlighted. TY does not want to have this be a long, dramatic game. He's trying to control Serral as much as possible. Really, for the Zerg, this is a huge balancing act, because you're trying to force him to make as many attacking units as possible, because if they're making Zerglings, they're not making drones, and he's going to try to control that. And I would imagine coming up here very soon, we're going to have a push from TY. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. The armory coming down here for TY means that with the medevac support, he can actually heal the Hellbats when they're in that biological mode, and when they have that extra bit of splash damage to stand and fight against those Zerglings. And considering that's pretty much what Serral's army is, that's a pretty good call from TY to go for that. But Serral, once he gets those Banelings up, if he is patient and pulls the engagement correctly, which he's just showed us time and time again every time he plays in this matchup, especially against Time and Asus Rogue with an amazing Baneling flank, stuff like that, that's one for the highlight reels. he is very patient and he engages very, very well. So this needs to go well for TY if he wants to get an edge in this game. That third CC being put behind this as well.
So he pocketed those Marines inside the medevac. He unloads them now. He's going to try to drive back the creep. And this is really a trading game. If he can trade more effectively with the Zerg, it could really end up hurting. The Banelings are coming, but they're actually far from finished. And so these Hellbats are going to come in, and he can actually take several of these out before they finish spawning if he targets them.
And it looks like he's really prioritizing the Queens here over the Banelings. He really wants those big hit point units to go down. Now there's pretty much just Marines and Reapers here, and without the medevac for support, Serral's just going to clean the floor with this push from TY.
Absolutely. I mean, once you lose that medevac, it becomes a very unforgiving situation, and Serral easily swatting away this attack. This means TY is going to have a tough job from here on out because, frankly, there's no way besides harassment like we see here for Terran to get any wins. Terran's most likely not going to be able to push for a while and actually take out a hatchery or kill a lot of Queens.
He actually, apart from forcing out a lot of Lings, has not been able to slow down Serral too much. He killed a couple Queens, which means a little bit less creep spread, maybe, but that's basically it. It's not actual damage. This is some nice damage, though, with this Liberator finding a very nice position here in the main base. Getting some drones coming out of that hatchery as well, and TY, with these multitasking the Liberators, very rarely will lose them without finding value.
As you can see, oh, hold on, he's actually going to come back in here.
Yeah, Serral needs to dance the spore around here, or he'll lose the Queen.
Yeah. Oh, okay, the Queen does manage to get under, and so that's the end of that Liberator harass. Meanwhile, the creep is going to continue to spread out here. Stim is still a little bit under halfway done, so again, infantry fights are not going to be a realistic thing. It's going to be Hellions and Liberators from here on out until he has that Stim upgrade, and then maybe there's going to be an opportunity for TY to try to turn this game around.
Yeah, the Liberator here is his harassment. These Hellions are kind of his map control, trying to sort of gut check the Zerg to make sure these defenses are in place, making sure that Serral's spending a little bit of APM to keep on top of the Terran's army. And this is tough for TY. You know, you can't really get into that third easily, especially considering that the creep's starting to spread over there. And going up a ramp into the natural is dangerous when you don't have high ground vision, you have no medevac or flying unit here, and there's Banelings for the Zerg opponent. He could just appear right in your face with those Banelings, and then everything disappears. So you can see he has to scan here, gets high ground vision, gets a couple creep tumors, which is always nice, but Serral is still holding on, taking very little damage.
Note how Serral's hugging the left side of the map here. TY is instead staying in his quadrant. Serral is eventually going to have to start expanding a little bit further forward here. I think the lower center base is another desirable location, but as far as it goes for TY, none of these spots are particularly easy to push. I think there might be a chance he pushes the top spot just because there's no creep, but again, no easy plans here for TY.
You don't see Contaminate used as much, this sort of way too often here from Serral. Contaminating the starport so that the medevac production is halted, not going for tank production or anything like that. So that's pretty interesting. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. Less medevacs means that the buyer has a little bit less staying power, means that the drop play is going to be delayed as well. So cool stuff from Serral using the Overseer. For all you ladder Zergs back at home that want a little bit of a tip there. TY, unfortunately, with a little bit of a supply block at the moment, but he's starting to work without the depots finishing up. And Serral, I mean, this is where TY wanted to avoid. He didn't want it to get towards the late game, and Serral is marching his way there, Tasteless. Infestation Pit over halfway done.
Yeah, one of the things about Serral is he's really proven how elastic Zerg can be in the late game. And so, as long as this game goes on for a while, I think Serral's absolutely going to be in his comfort zone. So, Serral's using these links to try to counterattack in and keep TY as honest as possible. But TY is going to be able to push out. He's headed over here to the top left corner, and this might be the most important part of this entire game. TY needs to make this push work. If not, I think Serral is going to grow at an out-of-control rate.
This is so common in TVZ when both players really don't do anything to each other when it gets to this part of the game. Terran has an army supply advantage. They have a scary push with siege tanks or winter mines, whichever way you want to go for it. And the onus is on the Zerg to not take damage here. If the Zerg doesn't take damage, they have a very strong lead going into the late game. But if Terran manages to get drone kills, hatchery kills, anything like that, he's going to be sitting pretty to start to really snowball.
Okay, he's coming up. I got to say, this is about as good of a spot as
really
TY
nice
could have asked for here. He's stimming this hatchery down, and Serral's going to have to make a decision. Does he try to dive on top of this and save it, or is he going to go ahead and sack the hatchery?
Looks like he's going to have to sack it. He just didn't feel confident enough to get those Banelings in firing range of those Marines. So TY takes a fantastic engagement there. But Serral setting up for the flank. Lings and Banelings coming in from the backside. TY's going to have to lift up and get on out of there.
And there's only one medevac, so escape for most of these units is not an option. Meanwhile, down here at the bottom of the map, TY dropping into this location and could easily force another cancel.
Definitely, and that's going to be a cancel for sure, Tasteless, and even taking some creep out with him as well on the way out of here. Checking out at the Zerg Hotel, a little bit of extra from the minibar. This is just so nice for the Terran. Knocking the Zerg down to 3 bases momentarily as Serral's trying to double expand and get it back up. TY still with that presence to the north side. Not many hit points on this hatchery. And he's just waiting for those links to go down, and then the hatchery and the drone's going to be next.
Yeah, the medevac actually runs out of energy. That was the same medevac that picked up in that fight earlier and came back. He was not able to take that out, but I want to point this out right here, right now. TY, 2 major victories. TY can absolutely continue to pull this game out. We talked about that push being the most important part in this game leading up to that moment. He succeeded. Now the question is, can TY take this and deliver it into a victory?
He's been trading so well against the Zerg that his army supply, that army supply lead that the Terran has had for a while here, has actually been exacerbated rather than being rectified by the Zerg. So he actually has an even better army at the moment. Serral still does not have tier 3 tech here. You know, he does have an Ultra 10, an Ultra Cavern just about to finish, and that's definitely going to help out. The accidental swarm host that no one wanted is also on the way of a Serral, so even gods do make mistakes. And here come the Marines again with another low hit point hatchery to the south. Another drop over here. He's going to go ahead and pick up. There's not much more he could do in that location, but more importantly is this push up here to the north. Because when you see siege tanks with that, Terran's intending to actually set up a position and try to take a fight. And so both of those medevacs, the ones we saw on the center left and the one at the bottom, are being used to try to make the Zerg in a bad position. And so this push here, if TY can do this again, I think he's going to be that much closer to actually winning this game. I'm getting very worried for Serral, man. His defenses on the south and also on the north look a little bit lackluster. Here comes the rest of his army to try and save this hatchery, and it looks like he will be able to save it, but the north side is definitely where the brunt of the force of the Terran is. And the Ultras, they're not quite out yet. They take a long time to build. They're very, very expensive. They also don't have chitinous or +2 armor or anything like that, so they're a little bit squishy. TY also starting to throw in Liberators and Marauders into his composition to make that late game tech a little bit easier for him to deal with. Once again, Terran's pushing out. And I got to say, TY is succeeding so well. Now, he stayed very tight. He was on 3 bases for this entire game up until this moment. He's now taking a 4th. But Serral's been garbage compacted a little bit here. He's been squished from the top. He's having to take this lower corner here. Now, is this going to be an overextension, though? Looks like Serral might have enough here. He does not want TY to have that tank position. The Banelings zoning those Marines away from the Ultras. But there's actually this tank position. It ended up being a nice little SimCity there for the Terran. So he gets one of the Ultras down at least. But it does look like Serral just has a little bit too much. Yeah, that was an overextension for sure there by TY. It probably would have been wiser to go back and macro up a little bit more and then come in with a push that would have been safer, but I get the idea. He's trying to take this lead and actually push it to the next level. I mean, he just doesn't want to give Serral breathing room. Zerg in general, you don't want to be left alone so that they can drone up and get all their tech out and get a good number of Ultras, get their upgrades sorted. Serral is the last Zerg in the entire planet. You want to leave any room to breathe. You want to make sure that he's being chokeholded, that you're keeping the pressure on, and that's when even the best player in the world can make mistakes. Another push coming in here. Now, if Serral can win this fight, that's going to be huge, but liberation zones have been set up. It's a very narrow area for melee units to try to come through, but I think there's just too much. And actually, TY getting pushed away into a location that's actually not far from this expansion, so he can even push further and try to take this location out. And that's the main lifted up Tasteless, so that's not a planetary, and that's definitely not what you want as a Terran, to have your 4th exposed like that. These Ultras ignoring it, though, going straight for the throat of TY. Not many hit points left on these Ultras, so it looks like 3 of them are about to go down, but Serral definitely putting the pressure on this side of the map means that he can actually be free and clear on the other side of the map to do what he wants to do. Being a little sloppy with the Ultras in the south here, taking a lot of shots from those Liberators. This is like a StarCraft cinematic
the
SCVs are all stacked up. Doesn't quite finish them off, though.
Normally, you don't just have Ultras by themselves.
Definitely, generally not.
So I think that was probably a little bit too risky there by Serral. He probably should have had that gripped a little bit better, but I think he saw an opportunity. He said, okay, I'm going to run with this and try to get in here. But losing a lot of those Ultras is going to give TY the opportunity now to do this counter push.
Serral did remake those Zerglings, and he has some Banelings as well. Not that many Banelings, but definitely a lot of Zerglings, which do have Adrenaline plus to attack, so they're quite scary to the Terran. A lot of these SCVs damaged from that earlier Ultralisk coming in, gets 5, just snapped like that from that economy of TY. His economy isn't too bad, though. The Terran can certainly go toe-to-toe for the Zerg, but Serral's getting towards that part of the game where he starts to get unbeatable. When he gets towards the Great Aspire, when he gets towards Vipers, that's when TY hopefully is going to have an answer for him, or he's going to start to fold as the game gets longer and longer, as that really is Serral's stomping ground.
All right, we've got this one swarm host coming out here.
Yeah.
That's the hero unit. That's Serral in there.
I'll show my father.
Serral loses the game.
I'll show my father. I'll be the best unit ever.
You know, Terrans, the way that TY played this game, by the way, Tarim went really hard on just the 3 bases. That's when we saw the orbital from the main get pushed forward here. Oh, hold on a second. We actually got another huge drop here inside the main with these liberation zones getting set up.
And this is a scary one, Tasteless. There's 5 Liberators sieged up on top of this bio, and there's a bit of tech here for the Zerg as well. Serral with a nice run by. Oh, he was waiting for the Queens. The Queens are here for mass transfusion on the Ultras to get rid of that ground army, and then they can block these Liberators out of the sky, and even some of the Medevacs as well. Serral does lose some expensive units, but TY took so much damage to his army supply and economy during this.
Yeah, that was a pretty ambitious move to try to take the main there. A lot of times if you can't win a fight over these expansions, it's better to go in there and try to eat out a lot of that tech. But instead, that was actually crushed pretty badly, and Serral may be able to outgrow TY at this moment.
Yes, TY's looking a little bit desperate here. He's pushing with his bio and Marauders, still trying to put the pressure on the Zerg, but Serral's really stabilized with a great-looking army. Leigh's coming in from that cancel of the base kill on the right-hand side, looking to wrap around this Terran force and force him back. The Corruptors are just blocking these Liberators. Easy peasy pickings here for Serral. The Queens are here as well,
GG.
and he takes a very